Ezine, I love you so much.
Deep under the water where no sun can reach, the blind goddess Ezine stood in her coral palace, eyes milky white but seeing everything. Her prince Chaik, the man who gave 7 years of his life for love, looked at her and said, "Take my eyes instead. Let me go blind, so you can see again, and know my heart loves you truly, not with pity." The moment he spoke those words, the curse broke, but the jealous water spirits rose in fury. Waves crashed over the land above, drowning fields and homes. Ezine's tears mixed with the flood. Would his sacrifice save the world, or finish the destruction he started? This is the heart of the tale. Sometimes true sight costs everything, my dear viewers. If that moment made your heart jump, stay right here with me. Press that subscribe button so you never miss when the old tales come alive again. Give this a like if the magic already touched you. And write in the comments, would you give your eyes for someone you love? Long ago, in a kingdom hidden deep in the heart of the land, where the earth once danced with green fields and singing rivers, a great sadness fell upon the people. The sun burned like an angry fire, day after day, with no mercy. The rivers that used to rush and laugh like happy children now lay quiet, turned to dry dust and cracked mud. The big streams became thin lines of sand, and the small ones vanished altogether, as if they had run away in fear. The crops in the fields, those strong yams and tall cassava plants that fed everyone, now bent low and withered, like old men too tired to stand. No rain came to wake them up. The leaves turned brown and crumbled at a touch. The farmers shook their heads and whispered, "What have we done to anger the sky?" The children, once round and full of play, grew thin and quiet. Their bellies grumbled like distant thunder. But no storm followed. Mothers held them close at night, singing soft songs to chase away the hunger, but even the songs sounded weak. The people gathered in the evenings under the big iroko trees, their faces long and worried. They said to each other, "The ancestors are angry. They have closed the doors of the heavens. Our fathers and mothers who walked before us, they watch us now and shake their heads. We must have broken some old promise, some sacred way." The air was hot and dry, carrying dust that stung the eyes and choked the throat. Birds no longer sang in the mornings, they hid in the shade, too weary to fly. Even the animals in the bush moved slowly, searching for water that was not there. In this parched kingdom lived a young prince named Chaik. He was in his middle 20s, strong and tall like a young palm tree, with eyes that shone with kindness, but his heart was restless. Like a bird caught in a cage, Chaik was the heir to the throne, the one who would one day rule when his father passed on. He walked among the people, sharing what little food the palace had, listening to their stories. "Do not worry," he would say softly. "The rains will come again. We must hold on." But inside, his own worries twisted like roots in hard soil. His father was the Obi, the great king, old and wise but now growing weak. The Obi's hair was white as cotton, and his steps were slow. For many seasons, he had led the rain-calling rituals. He would stand on the high hill at dawn, with the elders around him, beating drums and pouring libations to the spirits. They chanted old words, calling on the Kai, the personal guardians that watch over every soul. "Come, rain, wash away our thirst. Honor our ancestors." But the sky stayed silent, like a deaf ear. Each failed ritual made the Obi weaker, as if the drought was drinking his strength too. He coughed in the nights, and his eyes grew dim. The people loved him, but they feared what would come if the rains did not return soon. Chaik carried a special thing. With him always a mysterious family amulet, hanging on a cord around his neck. It was small and round, made of old stone carved with strange marks, glowing faintly in the dark like a hidden firefly. This amulet came from his mother, who had died the very day Chaik was born. The elders said she was a woman of great power, close to the spirits, and that she passed her last breath into this amulet for her son. It reveals hidden truths, they whispered, but only to the one whose heart is pure and listening. Chaik touched it often, feeling its warmth against his chest. Sometimes, it seemed to whisper to him like a faraway voice, but he could not yet understand the words. He wondered if it held the key to ending the drought, or if it was just a memory of the mother he never knew. One hot afternoon, when the sun hung high like a heavy stone, the Obi called a tense council of elders. They gathered in the great hut, its walls made of mud and thatch. Cooled only by the shade of woven mats, the elders sat in a circle on low stools, their faces lined with years and wisdom. They wore simple cloths wrapped around their bodies, beads around their necks, and some held staffs carved with animal shapes. The air was thick with the smell of burning herbs, meant to call the ancestors close. The Obi sat at the head, looking frail but still proud. Chaik stood quietly in the shadows, listening, as princes often do. An old storyteller, revered by all, rose to speak. His name was Okonkwo, and his voice was deep like thunder rolling far away. He had told tales by the fire for as long as anyone could remember. "Listen, my brothers," he began, his eyes shining. "In these dry times, we must remember the old legends. There is one that may hold the answer to our sorrow." The elders leaned forward, and even the wind outside seemed to quiet down. "Long ago," Okonkwo said, "there was Ezine, the beautiful water spirit, daughter of Nana, the great river goddess who rules all the waters of the world. Ezine was proud and vain. More beautiful than the moon on a clear night, her scales shimmered like stars in the river, and her songs could make the fish dance. But one day, in her vanity, she stared too long at her own reflection in the sunlit sea. The bright glare burned her eyes, a punishment from the divine ones above. Now she is blind, her eyes milky white like clouds over the moon. She dwells in a sacred, hidden lagoon, far from our kingdom, where the waters are deep and secret." The storyteller paused, letting the words sink in. But Ezine's blindness gave her a greater gift in her vision. She sees not with eyes, but with her spirit. She pierces souls, uncovers hidden secrets, and glimpses what the future holds. She can call the rains and bring fertility to the land, making the earth bloom again, but only to those who prove worthy through great sacrifice. For Nana's daughter is not easily pleased. The elders murmured, nodding. Chaik's heart beat faster in the shadows. He had heard whispers of this legend before, but never the full tale. As the council went on, Chaik slipped closer to overhear the hushed warnings. The elders spoke in low voices, like leaves rustling in a secret wind. "Any man who seeks Ezine as his consort must live 7 long years in her underwater realm." One said, "Down there, where the sun never shines, among the fish and the spirits of the deep. He must never long for the sunlit world above, never wish for the open sky or the warm earth. And most important, he must never speak of her blindness to anyone. If he does, her fragile power will shatter like a clay pot, and great calamity will come, floods, storms, and darkness over the land." Another elder added, "Many have tried before. Strong warriors, wise men, even kings from far places. They went to the lagoon, called her name, and vanished below the waters. None returned. Their bones lie forgotten in the deep, or so the old songs say. It is a path of danger, not for the weak of heart." Chike felt a chill run through him, even in the hot. But deep inside, a fire burned. He carried a private guilt, heavy as a stone. Years ago, when he was just a boy, he had joined a ritual to honor the ancestors. In his eagerness, he had spoken the words wrong, spilled the offering too soon. The drought started soon after. It is my fault, he fought. I worsen this curse. I must make it right. Duty pulled at him like a strong rope, duty to his father, to his people, to the land that cried for water. That night, as the moon rose high and silver, Chike made his choice. He would go alone to find the sacred lagoon. No one must know, or they would stop him. He packed a small bag with bread, a water gourd, and a sharp knife. He touched the amulet one last time, feeling it pulse faintly against his chest, like a heartbeat from another world. It hinted at powers yet unknown, secrets waiting to wake. Under the moonlight, the kingdom slept uneasily. Chike slipped away from the palace, past the quiet huts and the dry fields. The path led into the shadows of the trees, where the night whispered promises and warnings. He looked back once, at the place he loved, then turned forward. The journey had begun. Chike walked away from the sleeping palace before the first cock crowed. The road ahead of him was narrow, swallowed by tall trees whose branches tangled together like whispering elders. The forest breathed slowly, deeply, as though it were alive and watching him. Each step he took sank into soft earth, and the farther he walked, the quieter the world became. No birds sang. That alone troubled him. Even the forest knows, Chike murmured to himself. As the sun rose, thin light struggled through the leaves. Shadows shifted in strange ways, stretching longer than they should. Sometimes Chike felt certain that someone walked beside him, only to turn and find nothing but trees and vines. By midday, the air grew heavy, without warning. The wind howled. Dark clouds rolled in from nowhere, thick and angry. Thunder cracked so loudly the ground trembled beneath Chike's feet. Rain fell in wild sheets, drenching the forest in seconds. Branches snapped. Leaves tore loose and spun through the air. Yet something was wrong. The rain never touched him. It fell all round Chike, pounding the ground, soaking the trees, flooding the path, but his clothes remained dry. Lightning flashed close enough for him to smell fire, yet never struck him. Chike stopped walking. He raised his hands slowly, staring at them. Dry. This is no ordinary storm, he said softly. The amulet on his chest pulsed. Warm, as if agreeing. Chike bowed his head. Whoever watches me, he said to the forest, I am not here to challenge you. I am here to beg. The wind softened. The thunder faded. As suddenly as it came, the storm passed, leaving the forest steaming and silent once more. From that moment on, Chike knew he was no longer alone. He walked for days. He crossed twisted roots as thick as snakes, climbed rocky slopes, and waded through shallow streams that whispered his name though no mouth spoke it. At night, he slept lightly, dreaming of water that breathed and eyes that saw without looking. On the fourth day, he smelled fish. It was a sharp, salty scent that did not belong so deep inland. Soon, he heard humming low rough familiar. Chike followed the sound until the trees thinned and opened into a clearing. There, beside a narrow river that moved far too slowly for comfort, sat a fisherman mending his net. The man was old but strong, his skin dark and cracked like river clay. His eyes were bright and clever. Too clever. He did not look surprised to see Chike. So, the fisherman said without looking up, Another one has come. Chike stopped. Another one, the fisherman chuckled. You think you are the first young man to walk this path with trouble in his heart. Chike studied him. You know where this path leads. I know where it ends, the fisherman replied, finally lifting his eyes. At water that sings sweetly and kills softly, Chike sat on a fallen log, careful not to show fear. Then tell me, he said. What do you know of the spirit who dwells there? The fisherman smiled, showing teeth stained by kola nut. Ah, Ezine, he said, drawing out the name like a song. Beautiful beyond sense. Her voice can soften stone. Men hear her singing and forget their mothers, their homes, their own names. They walk into the water smiling and never walk out again. That is not why I seek her, Chike said. The fisherman laughed. That is what they all say. Chike met his gaze steadily. Did you see them die? The fisherman's fingers paused on the net. No, he said slowly. I saw the water close over their heads. A silence fell between them. Why do you remain here? Chike asked. The fisherman shrugged. Someone must warn fools. And someone must profit from them. Chike frowned. Profit. The fisherman reached into a small woven basket and pulled out a necklace made of pale shells, smooth and shining. Protection, the fisherman said. The spirits respect those who carry the gifts of the water. Wear this, and as in song will not pull you under. Chike hesitated. The amulet at his chest grew strangely cold. Why give this to me? Chike asked. The fisherman leaned closer. His voice dropped. Because the water does not forgive easily, and because even spirits respect bargains. Chike studied the necklace. It was beautiful, too beautiful. If this is protection, Chike said, why do you still fear her? The fisherman's smile widened. Sharp as a blade, because protection always has a price. Before Chike could respond, the fisherman stood and placed the necklace around his neck. The shells were cool, heavy. There, the fisherman said, now the water will know you. Chike opened his mouth to refuse, but the fisherman had already turned away. Gathering his net, one more thing, the fisherman added casually, when she sings. Do not answer too quickly. Water likes patience. Chike stood slowly. What is your name? The fisherman paused, then chuckled. Names sink easily. Best not to carry mine. As Chike walked away, the river behind him rippled. Though no wind touched it, that night, Chike dreamed. He stood at the edge of endless water. A woman's voice sang his name, not loudly, but lovingly, like someone who had always known him. When he looked down, the shell necklace glowed faintly, tightening just enough to make his breath catch. He woke before dawn, gasping. The forest was quiet, too quiet. Far away, water stirred again. And deep beneath its surface, a blind goddess smiled. Near the lagoon's edge, Chike slowed his steps. The forest had thinned, leaving a quiet path lined with reeds that whispered in the wind. Mist hung low over the water, curling around the roots and stones like fingers. He could feel the pulse of something ancient beneath the surface. The amulet at his chest hummed faintly, urging him forward, yet a shiver ran through his spine. As he rounded a bend, he saw her. An old woman sitting cross-legged on a sunken log, wrapped in tattered cloth that smelled faintly of river mud. Her head tilted slightly downward, and a thin cane rested across her lap. She did not look at him, yet somehow he knew she could see him perfectly. Good day, traveler, she said, her voice dry yet oddly melodic. Or is it night? Time does not matter to those who walk paths they do not yet understand. Chike bowed slightly. Good day, Ma, he said. I seek the waters of the lagoon. I come with respect, not harm. The woman chuckled softly. Respect is easy to speak, young one. Harder to carry. She raised her face toward him, revealing eyes milky and unseeing. Do you know what it is to see without eyes? Chike shook his head. No, Ma, I only know what eyes show me. I only know what I feel in my heart. The woman's lips curved into a sly smile. Then answer me this. I am not touched by sunlight. Yet I glow. I speak without a tongue. Yet all can hear me. I hold truth without knowing lies. What am I? Chike hesitated. The words of the elders, the stories of the fishermen, even the pounding of the forest in his chest pressed on him. Then he remembered his mother's words, truth always finds you. He reached into his satchel, pulled out a small bundle of dried yams, his last food, and offered half to the woman. I do not know the answer, he said. But if sharing this helps you, please take it. Hunger is easier to cure than misunderstanding. The old woman's head tilted, studying him, as though weighing the sincerity of his heart. Kindness is sight, she said softly. You give not because you see, but because you understand. That is a rare gift. She leaned closer. Answer this second riddle. The land cries, the sky withholds, and men blame the heavens. Yet the root is not drought, but dishonor left unhealed. What is the cause? Chike's throat tightened. He thought of the failing crops, the shriveled rivers, the whispering elders who spoke of curses. It must be our ancestors, he said carefully. Some dead we have forgotten. Some wrong left unatoned. The woman nodded, her milky eyes glinting faintly in the mist. You see more than you think. The water waits for those who understand. But do not mistake vision for wisdom. The heart must act before the sight reveals all. Then she rose. Her bones creaked like the river stones, but when Chike blinked, she had vanished. Only a swirl of mist remained, curling over the lagoon like a secret breath. That night, Chike could not sleep. The riddles haunted his dreams. He saw flashes of his kingdom, dry fields cracking open like bones, children clutching empty gourds, and his father bowing low before a gathering of spirits in a long-forgotten ceremony. And there, in the shadows, a figure moved his own blood, hiding a betrayal that had cursed the land for generations. He awoke with a start and ran to the edge of the lagoon. The water lay still at first, glassy and calm. He whispered the old woman's words, desperate to summon her again. Spirit of the lagoon, I seek you. Show me the path. I offer my heart, my life, my service. Suddenly, the water boiled. Mist rose in twisting spirals. Waves swirled unnaturally, catching the moonlight in a silver frenzy. Then a voice came, low and melodic, echoing from every ripple, every shadow. You call, but do you understand what you summon? Chike's knees weakened, hands unseen surged from the water, grasping at him, tugging him closer. Fear and awe clashed in his chest. His amulet flared warm and pulsing. The water embraced him like a living thing, cold and alive. Mercy or doom, he whispered, clutching the amulet. The water twisted, the voice laughing softly, deep and endless, and before he could speak again, the unseen hands pulled him under. Darkness swallowed him. The air was thick and cold, yet he breathed. His heart pounded, echoing the rhythm of something older than memory. Above, the lagoon rippled and settled, leaving only silence. And far below, something ancient and blind waited. Chike's lungs burned as he sank deeper into the swirling water, the invisible hands still guiding him through currents that pulsed like living veins. Light dimmed around him. But it was not darkness that swallowed the world, it was a softness. A strange glow that seemed to seep from everywhere and nowhere at once. Then, as if the water itself parted in reverence, The underwater realm unfolded before him. It was unlike anything he had imagined. Towers of living coral rose like delicate sculptures, pink and gold and violet. Their surfaces moving subtly as if breathing. Fish with scales like tiny lanterns darted between the towers, leaving trails of sparkling light. Gardens of seaweed swayed rhythmically, forming patterns like ancient runes, while the faint hum of the water carried whispers of voices that were not voices at all. Chike's eyes widened. He could breathe. Though the air felt thick and strange, it was as if the water itself had become a living, gentle lung, offering him life even as it pressed against him. Everywhere he looked, attendants glided in the current tall and slender, their forms flickering between solidity and shimmer, like creatures born of mist and river. Their eyes glowed faintly. But it was the eyes that were not theirs that Chike felt most, a power so immense it thrummed in the water itself. And then she appeared, Ezine. She rose from the deepest shadow of the palace, moving as fluidly as the water itself. Her hair floated around her like a halo of night, studded with tiny pearls that caught the faint glow of the coral. Her skin shimmered with scales that reflected every fragment of light, pale as moonlight on rippling water. Her eyes were milky and sightless, yet Chike felt them pierce his soul with a clarity more precise than any mortal gaze. "You have come," she said, her voice like the gentle rush of a hidden stream, soft yet commanding. "And yet, I see that your heart is heavy." Chike dropped to his knees, overwhelmed by awe and fear. "My lady," he said, voice trembling, "I am Chike, prince of a land that dies. I come to beg your mercy for my people, for my father, for all who suffer." Ezine circled him slowly, moving like a fish through the currents, yet every step seemed to bend the water to her will. "You bear guilt," she said, each word echoing in his mind, "a shadow you do not fully understand, yet I see purity as well. That is rare, mortal. It is rare that one comes without seeking power for themselves." Chike swallowed hard, his hands clasped. "I offer myself to you," he said, steadying his voice. "I will live under your waters, follow your ways, endure your tests, if you will save my people. I do not ask for reward. Only that the drought ends, and the land may breathe again." Ezine paused, studying him as if weighing the truth of his words. Then, in a voice both soft and terrible, she spoke, "You offer your heart and your life, yet understand this. To walk with me is to leave the sun behind. You will dwell here for 7 years. You will forget longing for the surface, forget the sun, the wind, the dry heat of your land. And never speak of my blindness. Speak of it, and the fragile veil that holds this world and yours in balance will shatter. Floods will rage uncontrolled. Destruction will follow. Even your people will not be spared." Chike's chest heaved, but he nodded. "I accept. All that you ask. All that you command. My life, my freedom, my days, I give them freely if it will save those I love." The water shimmered, bending around them like a living cloak. Ezine extended her hand, and a vision bloomed in the space between them. Vast fields green again, rivers brimming, children laughing in rain-soaked villages. "If you keep your heart true," she said, "this can be your world. I will teach you to see not with your eyes, but with your soul. And when you understand, you will know the thoughts of men, the desires of rivers, the whispers of the past and the future alike." Chike reached out, trembling, and took her hand. The water pulsed around them. His amulet flared, warm against his chest, as if recognizing a power older than kings, older than mortals, and far beyond anything he had ever known. "Then let it be done," Chike whispered. "Teach me, test me. I will not fail." Ezine smiled a smile both gentle and terrible. So begins your lesson, Prince of the Parched Kingdom. Let the waters judge you, and let the heart be your guide. The current swirled, carrying him further into the palace of coral and light, deeper into a world where every secret could be seen, every guilt laid bare, and every heart tested. Above, the sky would remain parched a little longer, but below, a kingdom of wonders awaited, a place where love, sacrifice, and sight beyond sight would be measured not by eyes, but by the courage to endure. Days passed in the underwater palace, though time itself seemed to flow differently beneath the waves. Chike learned to move through the currents, to breathe the strange, warm water as if it were air. He marveled at every turn, gardens of coral that glowed softly, fish that shimmered like living jewels, and attendants who whispered secrets of the river in a language older than memory. Yet it was not the wonders that held his heart, it was her, Ezine. She watched him with eyes that could not see, yet saw everything. At first, she had been distant, her words sharp, her presence a reminder of the power she wielded. Chike approached cautiously, afraid that any misstep might anger her. But Chike's gentleness was persistent. He never rushed, never demanded. He offered his laughter freely, even when the palace corridors were silent. He shared stories of the land above the cracked earth, the children playing in dust, the scent of rain that had not yet come. He spoke not as a prince demanding obedience, but as a human carrying hope in his chest. Ezine began to notice, slowly, almost imperceptibly. Her walls softened. "You are patient," she said one evening, her voice echoing like a hidden stream. "Most men would tremble or turn proud before me. You do neither." Chike bowed slightly. "I am not like others, my lady. I only wish to learn, and to honor the gift you offer my people." She looked away, and for a moment, her face was not goddess, not ruler of rivers, but simply a woman, haunted. "I once trusted a man," she said, voice low and distant, "a human. Handsome, clever, full of praise for my beauty. But he mocked me, ridiculed my blindness, and left me to the depths alone. That memory is a wound I have carried for centuries." Chike felt a pang of sorrow in his chest. "He was unworthy," he said softly. "But I am not he. I cannot undo your past, yet I can try to ease your heart now, if you let me." Ezine paused, her milky eyes glimmering faintly in the soft light. "You speak boldly, mortal. Boldness alone does not protect you here." "I do not seek protection," Chike said, looking into the shimmer of her scales. "I only seek to honor you and serve the people I love." "If that is bold, then so be it." Her lips curved, just slightly. "Perhaps you are different." Then, in the quiet of the palace, she reached out and touched his hand. The water around them shifted, shimmering, folding into a vision that unfolded like a story written in waves. Chike saw his kingdom, not the dry, cracked land of his youth, but green fields alive with grain, rivers full and glistening under sunlight, children laughing and playing barefoot in the rain. Villagers danced and sang in joy, and yet, beneath the vibrant life, he saw shadows and illness hiding in his father's body, secrets whispered in corners, and a lineage burdened by guilt that had been carried silently for generations. He turned to her, awe and concern mingling. "This is our land," he said, voice trembling. "But these shadows, the sickness, the hidden past, it will not leave so easily." Ezine's gaze lingered on him. "It is not only the land that suffers, Chike. You carry guilt as well, and you do not fully know it yet. But in you, I see a heart that will endure, a spirit that will rise above the fear of truth." Chike swallowed, feeling the weight of her words settle upon him. "Then I will learn," he whispered. "I will face the shadows. I will carry the truth, and I will serve," as he nodded slowly. A quiet acknowledgement. She extended her hand, and as he took it, the water around them shifted again. He felt it entering his lungs easily now, her magic teaching him how to breathe beneath the waves as naturally as above. The amulet at his chest throbbed faintly, whispering doubts he could not name, small flickers of fear that perhaps he was not ready. Perhaps he would fail, but he ignored them. For the first time, he saw Azine not as a goddess or a spirit, but as a woman vulnerable to pain, memory, and longing. Her voice, once commanding, softened. "Do not be afraid, Chaik," she said. "Not all truths are yours to carry alone. But your heart is true." And in that moment, Chaik understood. The trials would be many. The dangers would be hidden and real. Yet in Azine's quiet vulnerability, he felt the first seeds of empathy take root, not pity, not fear, but a bond born of courage, respect, and love that did not demand anything but honesty. He smiled gently, holding her hand. "Then teach me, Azine," he said. "Teach me to see as you do." Her milky eyes shimmered faintly, and for the first time, she allowed herself a small, trusting smile. The currents danced on them, and for a moment, the palace of coral and glowing fish seemed less a place of power, and more a home. And beneath the water, as the vision of the kingdom shimmered and the amulet whispered faint warnings, the first true thread of their story began, a story of empathy, courage, and a love that would test the limits of heart and soul alike. The first 3 years beneath the waves passed like the turning of tides. Time was no longer measured in days or nights, but in currents, and the pulse of coral gardens. In the rising and falling of luminescent fish, Chaik awoke each morning to a world of quiet wonder. He learned to move through the water as easily as walking on land, gliding past towers of living coral, twisting gardens of seaweed, and schools of fish that shimmered like scattered stars. He learned to breathe in the water as naturally as he had once breathed air. Each inhalation carried life, each exhalation sent ripples through the currents. He learned the language of the river spirits, whispers that told him when the water spoke truth or deceit. With time, he could read the smallest flicker in an attendant's eye, the subtlest tremor in a water sprite's fin, and know what lay hidden in their hearts. And yet, above the surface, the kingdom began to heal. Rain returned at last, first in gentle showers, then in torrents that soaked parched earth and filled thirsty rivers. Green shoots broke through cracked soil, and children ran laughing through fields once gray and dusty. Villagers danced in the rain, singing praises to gods and spirits alike, never knowing who had brought the waters back. Chaik watched it all through the visions the lagoon granted him, and for all the joy it brought, a quiet longing nestled in his chest. He missed the warmth of sunlight on his face. He missed the smell of dry earth after rain. He missed the simple feeling of standing beneath the open sky. One afternoon, while practicing a new breathing technique, he sensed movement behind a coral spire. A figure emerged, a water nymph, her form shifting and delicate, her eyes glinting with cunning. She bowed low, though the bow was too smooth, too rehearsed. "I have come to offer guidance, Prince Chaik," she said, her voice soft as bubbles rising in still water. "There are secrets even Azine cannot see. You must learn them to protect yourself and to serve her well." Chaik looked at her cautiously. "I serve Azine," he said, "and I trust her. Why should I heed you?" The nymph smiled faintly, tilting her head. "Even the wisest hearts are tempted by hope. Surely you would wish to help her. Would you not, to restore her fully?" To give her eyes that see as humans see. Chike hesitated. You mean, cure her blindness? Yes, the nymph said, floating closer, her voice a gentle current brushing against his mind. There is a rare herb on the surface, the of the ancestor. It can restore her sight. Only one brave enough can retrieve it. Only one with true love can use it rightly. Chike's pulse quickened. The idea was tempting, but forbidden. He thought of Azin's words, never speak of my blindness. Never seek to undo me. And yet, the thought lingered, like a light in the deep, dark water. Later that night, alone in his chambers, Chike touched the amulet at his chest. It pulsed faintly, warm and insistent. Curious, he whispered the incantation Azin had taught him. The water shimmered, and suddenly, he glimpsed the surface world. He saw his father, older and weaker, sitting in a sunlit hall. Beside him was a woman with sharp eyes and a smile too quick, her hands restless, her gaze lingering on the throne as if it were hers already. She laughed lightly at something his father said, but her eyes glimmered with hunger. She hungered for power, Chike realized. For the crown. For the kingdom itself. A pang of longing struck him so sharply it made him catch his breath. He wanted to be above the water again, to stand in the sun, to see the kingdom with his own eyes and not through visions. And in that moment, the temptation nearly broke the vow he had made. Suddenly, the water shifted, and Azin appeared beside him, her milky eyes gentle yet piercing. You have looked, she said softly. I felt the longing in your heart. Do not fear it. Desire alone does not betray the soul. Only actions do. Chike knelt in the water. Forgive me, my lady, I could not help but see. Azin's hand brushed against his cheek. Delicate and cold. Then learn from it, she said. Do not hide from your heart. Let it guide you. Not chain you. That is why I teach you. For the first time, Chike felt their bond deepen not as servant and spirit, not as prince and goddess, but as two hearts learning trust and courage in the currents of a world apart from men and sun. But the visions did not cease. One evening, the amulet pulsed with urgency. And Chike was shown a glimpse of a future yet to come. He saw himself holding the eye of the ancestor, tending to Azin, and touching her eyes. For a brief moment, her sight returned, colors bloomed in the water, and for a heartbeat, she could see the world as humans see it. Then the vision shifted. Waters rose in sudden, furious floods, sweeping villages, destroying homes, drowning fields once green. Lightning struck the parched earth above, and the wind howled like the cries of ancestors scorned. Chike's chest tightened. Is this prophecy, or temptation, or manipulation? He whispered to himself, the amulet thrumming against his heart. Above, the kingdom slept under returning rain, unaware of the perils swirling below the lagoon. And beneath the currents, a distant voice, soft, cold, yet laced with warning, echoed through the water. Some gifts are not meant to be taken lightly. Some truths are too dangerous for mortal hands. Choose wisely, prince of the parched kingdom, or all you love may drown. Chike closed his eyes, feeling the currents swirl around him, the amulet's faint whispers echoing doubts, yet also a promise. See with your heart, trust in what is true, and in that swirling, shimmering water, he knew that the real trials were only beginning. By the 4th year beneath the waves, Chike had become more than a visitor in the underwater palace. The water spirits whispered his name with respect. They sought his counsel, asked him to interpret currents and visions, and marveled at the way he read hearts as if they were open books. Yet even as reverence grew round him, a quiet loneliness gnawed at the edges of his soul. The palace was magnificent, but it was still a prison of sorts. The walls of living coral that gleamed with phosphorescent light felt less like beauty and more like a cage. The currents carried whispers, the fish and attendants watched. But the air, or rather the water, was still, and no laughter from the sun above reached him. Ezin's love, which had once been a gentle, guiding current, had grown fierce and possessive. She would follow him silently as he swam through the gardens, her milky eyes always watching. She forbade him from certain chambers, doors lined with ancient mirrors that reflected fragments of her past, images of vanity, of sorrow, of mistakes made long before Chaik had been born. "You must never enter here," she said one evening, her voice tight with authority. "These mirrors are not for mortal eyes. They show what cannot be undone, and they have driven many to despair." Chaik nodded, his heart aching with curiosity, but he obeyed. "I will not," he said. "I trust your wisdom, my lady." Yet trust, as he had learned, could be a fragile thing. One night, as he sat alone by a garden of softly glowing coral, he felt the amulet pulse warmer than usual. The water shimmered on him. And suddenly the old fisherman appeared before his eyes, not in flesh, but in a vision. "Uncle," Chaik whispered, blinking in disbelief. The fisherman's eyes, once sly and clever, now held weight and sorrow. "Chaik," he said slowly, "it is time you knew the truth. I am your uncle, exiled for betrayal long ago. I did wrong the royal bloodline, and for generations, the curse of our family has followed. That shell necklace you wear, it is no protection. It has only deepened your longing for the world above. Beware its whispers." Chaik's chest tightened. The shell necklace, given by a seemingly helpful hand, had been feeding his desires all along. He clutched it, feeling its cold, smooth surface and the way it seemed to pull at his heart, urging him to remember the sun, the dry earth, the sky he could not see. He began, but the vision dissolved, leaving him alone in the glowing water gardens. Days later, he sought counsel from one of the attendants he had come to trust. The spirit glided to him, her form flickering like moonlight on water. "You are troubled," she said softly. "I can help you. I am tempted," Chaik admitted. "The herb, the eye of the ancestor, if it exists, I could restore as insight. I feel as though the kingdom above, the sun, and the air are calling me. I do not know if I can resist." The spirit nodded, her voice like gentle current. "Perhaps it is time you acted, Prince. Only those brave enough to retrieve it can truly serve her." Chaik's heart thudded. "Are you certain this is right? Do what your heart demands," she whispered. "But tread carefully." He did not notice Ezin, hidden in the shadows of the coral towers, watching every word. She had heard fragments, not the whole conversation, but enough to think him plotting against her, to think him tempted by a life he swore to leave behind. Her heart tightened, and a cold wave of distance rose between them. That night, Ezin confronted him. Her voice, usually calm and measured, shook like a storm-swept current. "Why do you speak in shadows? Why do you seek that which is forbidden? Do you think my blindness is a weakness to exploit?" Chaik knelt before her, words tumbling over themselves. "No, my lady, I seek nothing but to honor you. I would never betray you. I am weak in longing, yes, but my heart is yours." She stared at him, and in that gaze, he saw not anger alone, but centuries of pain, solitude, and memory. Her voice softened, raw and honest. "My blindness is a gift, Chaik. It allows me to see what the eyes cannot. But it also keeps me apart from the world, from men, from those I might love. I am alone, even when surrounded." Chaik reached for her hand. "Then you are not alone anymore," he said gently. I know the weight of loneliness, my lady. I know what it is to bear responsibility, to carry guilt, and to feel the world pressing down without a single friend to share it. I do not wish to leave you, even if I long for sunlight. Her eyes, milky yet filled with an unspoken tremor, softened, and the currents around them stilled. The palace seemed to breathe with them. Passion flared and intimate. Fragile connection between two hearts who understood isolation in their own ways. Chaik pressed closer, feeling the warmth of her presence, the pulse of her magic, the vastness of her sorrow. And yet, even in that moment of closeness, his hand brushed against a leaf of coral where the herb had been hidden by one of the envious attendants. Impulsively, he plucked it, holding it carefully. The forbidden herb, the eye of the ancestor, was now in his hands. Ezine did not see it, not yet, but the choice had been made. The currents around them shimmered with tension, carrying the faintest warning. Desire, though natural, could tip the balance of love and trust into peril. Chaik hid the herb beneath his tunic, feeling the weight of it against his chest. He looked at Ezine, who, despite her possessiveness, her power, and her centuries of sorrow, allowed herself a rare, quiet smile. And in that instant, he realized, to love her truly would mean navigating shadows and temptation, as much as the currents of the water itself. And so the seeds of conflict, of doubt, and of desire were planted, drifting like invisible currents towards storms yet to come. The water around Chaik shimmered with tension, the currents thrumming like the pulse of a living heart. He had returned to the underwater palace, yet it felt heavier now. The beauty of coral towers and gardens tinged with unease. The floods above raged. The cries of the kingdom carried faintly through the water, and the faint light of the sun barely pierced the surface. Chaik moved slowly, his amulet warm against his chest, pulsing with a power he had not yet fully understood. He felt it stir, awakening something deep within, and suddenly, the water seemed to part in his mind, revealing layers of truth hidden beneath currents and mirrors alike. He saw the past unfold before him, not the tales told by storytellers or the whispers he had been given, but the raw, unvarnished truth. The nymphs, those envious spirit-kin of Ezine, had not been innocent guardians of the water. Long ago, they had conspired against her, jealous of her divine favor and radiant power. They had blinded her, not the sun, not fate, but their own dark magic, to steal the gift she carried from Nana herself. Chaik's heart thundered. It was not fate, it was envy, he murmured. It was not punishment, it was theft. The amulet pulsed stronger, its warmth spreading through his chest, into his mind. And suddenly he could see more than the visible. He could pierce deception, read intentions, and understand hidden hearts. The water spirits bowed in reverence as if acknowledging the awakening of a force older than kings. A presence filled the palace, vast and radiant, like the tide itself had taken shape and walked among them. Nana, the river goddess, radiant and majestic, scales glimmering like molten silver, eyes deep and ancient as eternity. Her voice echoed through the currents and resonated in Chaik's very soul. Chaik, she intoned, gentle yet terrible, you have uncovered much, yet there is a truth even you must bear with care. Chaik fell to his knees. I am ready, Nana. I will face it, whatever it is. The goddess's gaze softened, then sharpened like the edge of a blade. You are not the true-born prince. You are the child of the exiled uncle, switched at birth to one day break the ancestral curse. The bloodlines of land and water are bound by ancient law. Your union with Ezine is forbidden. Chaik's chest tightened. Forbidden, but I love her. She loves me. How can this law, outweigh our hearts? Nana's eyes glimmered like the deep sea, love does. Not erase law, mortal. Blood carries power older than affection. To ignore this truth would invite chaos, war between spirits and men, floods that would drown more than villages, and curses that cannot be undone. Chaik swallowed hard. The moral weight pressed on him like the currents above the palace, exposed the truth and risk. Destruction and heartbreak or conceal it and protect Ezine. Though lying might betray the very principles he had fought to honor. Before he could speak, Ezine appeared, her milky eyes now sharp with curiosity and suspicion. "What is it?" she asked, sensing the weight in the water, the tremor in his heart. "What do you see that bends the current so?" He struggled to meet her gaze. "There is a secret, my lady. A truth I have learned. It changes everything." Ezine's fins fluttered, and the water seemed to hush. "Speak," she demanded. "I can bear the truth, even if it burns me." Chaik took a deep breath, and in the silence of the underwater palace, told her everything, the nymph's betrayal, the ancient curse, and the revelation that he was not the true-born prince. Ezine's hands trembled slightly. "So this is why the land suffers, why the curse lingers, why the waters and hearts are unsettled," she whispered. Her voice was soft, but the weight of centuries pressed in every syllable. Chaik reached for her. "I do not care for the law, my lady, if it means we cannot be together. I only care for you, for the people, for what is right in the heart." Ezine's eyes, though blind, seemed to pierce through him. "Your heart is true, Chaik, but the law is older than us. And still, I see your courage, your honesty, that may yet change everything." Suddenly, the currents shifted. Carrying a new presence, a suitor of great power and stature. A chief from distant lands, he glided forward, robes shimmering like dark water. Eyes bold and unwavering. "My lady," he intoned, voice deep as a river gorge, "I offer myself as consort, protector, and ally. If the prince proves unworthy, or bound by fate he cannot bend, I am ready to serve you." Ezine paused, the water round her rippling with tension. "You come, not to claim me, but to test him," she murmured, almost to herself. The rival bowed, then retreated slightly, letting the tension hang like an unspoken challenge. Chaik's hands clenched, his love burned brighter in the currents, desperate, raw, unyielding. Ezine's presence, her hand reaching toward him, drew him closer, and in that instant, the floods above and the storm beneath the waves seemed less a threat and more a trial, one that demanded courage, devotion, and the willingness to defy even the oldest of laws for the heart. The choice pressed upon them both. Would love bend the currents of fate? Or would ancient law crush their union before it could fully bloom? And in the palace of living coral, under the watch of spirits and goddess alike, the answer had yet to be decided. The underwater palace had transformed into a court of awe and power. Coral towers glowed with an almost unbearable brilliance, shells chimed like distant bells, and river spirits, attendants, and ethereal beings gathered in a great circle on a raised dais of living coral. At its center hovered Nana herself, majestic and vast, her eyes deep and endless, radiating both judgment and mercy. Chaik knelt at the center, the amulet warm and thrumming against his chest, aware of every gaze upon him, curious, fearful, reverent. Ezine floated beside him, her milky eyes now partly clear, reflecting a world of shifting currents, color, and light. The herb he had used had not been wholly poison. It had granted her fleeting sight, a glimpse of colors, of faces, of sunlight, but if she left the water while fully seeing, she would lose her divine powers forever. Nana's voice carried through the water like a wave breaking over stone. "Prince Chaik," she intoned, Truth and love are tested in ways both cruel and just. You have acted with care and with error. Now we witness the measure of your heart. The nymphs hovered near, their forms twisting in currents like shadows on rippling water. Malice radiated from them, and Chaik knew that they had twisted the plan, using them as both temptation and trap. Their envy had almost undone him and the one he loved. Ezin's voice, rich and terrible, broke the silence. I allowed much of what you did, Chaik, she said. I foresaw your doubts, your longings, and even your betrayal, though it was only fleeting. I allowed it to test you, to see if love could endure imperfection. But the nymphs, they twisted my visions. They sought to destroy what I tried to protect. Chaik's heart pounded. My lady, I acted from love, not pity. I would never hurt you. Ezin's expression softened, yet the water round her bristled with power. Love is not only kindness, it is acceptance. Can you accept me, Chaik, not as one who can be healed, not as one who can be changed, but as I am, blind, immortal, and separate from the world above? Chaik looked at her, truly looked, and felt the currents tighten down his chest. The floods above the surface churned violently, lightning flashing across the sky, thunder shaking mountains and rivers alike. Villages were threatened, yet he could not flee, he could only act. I will, he said finally. I accept you exactly as you are, without hesitation. He placed his hands over his eyes, the amulet pulsing a bright, white-hot warmth. If it proves my love, let me bear what you bear, he whispered. Take my sight, if you must, so that I may love you as you are, not as I wish you to be. A silence fell. Then, slowly, Chaik's vision faded, darkness curling on him. He could see nothing with his eyes. Yet the amulet thrummed like a heartbeat, guiding him. He was blind, yet more aware than ever. He felt the flow of currents, the intent of spirits, the heartbeats of all living things in the water. The ancestral curse shattered in that moment. The flood waters above stilled, the wind softened, and the nymphs hissed, realizing that the power they had sought to steal could not be broken by envy or deceit. True acceptance, true love had undone centuries of wrath. But there was no time to celebrate. The nymphs, furious and desperate, attacked in a storm of water and magic. Chaik, now guided entirely by inner vision, moved with the currents as a shadow moves with the wind. He ducked and weaved, sending blasts of water to mislead the nymphs, drawing them into currents of their own making. You cannot win, one of them shrieked, circling him like a vengeful wave. I do not fight for victory, Chaik replied. I fight for love. The battle escalated. Corals shattered, currents twisted into jagged spirals, and Ezin unleashed bursts of energy that drove back the envious spirits. Chaik guided her, felt her power, and together they pushed the nymphs toward a deep trench in the sea floor. One by one, the attackers were ensnared in their own magic, trapped and broken, but in the final surge, Chaik was caught in a collapsing vortex, swirling violently. He reached for Ezin, but the water pulled him down. The currents twisted and roared, the palace seemed to fracture around him, and he was dragged beneath the chaos, darkness consuming all, but his heart remained steady, his inner vision clear, and his love for Ezin unshaken. From above the water, the kingdom paused, sensing the change. The storms ebbed slightly, a calm breathing through the land and villages, as if nature itself waited to see the final choice of the young prince who had dared to see with his heart. And beneath the waves Chaik disappeared into the chaos, ready to emerge not with his eyes but with his heart, prepared to face whatever remained of the nymphs, the floods, and the trials that still bound the fate of land and water alike. 7 years had passed beneath the waves, yet to Chike it felt both a lifetime and a heartbeat. The currents no longer felt strange, the palace of living coral no longer seemed alien. He had learned to read the whispers of the water, to understand the heartbeats of spirits, and to navigate the tides with a wisdom that came only from hardship and devotion. Ezine swam to him one evening, her milky eyes now full and clear, shimmering like moonlight on still water. Her hand brushed his cheek gently, and for the first time, she allowed herself to smile freely, without fear, without hesitation. "The time has come," she said softly. "7 years, the trial is complete. The pact we made, the burdens we bore, it ends tonight." Chike's heart swelled, yet he did not hesitate. "My lady," he said, voice steady and unwavering, "I choose not to return to the sun above and leave you. I choose to remain your consort, to share this realm with you. For all the days I am given." Ezine's eyes glistened with tears that shone like tiny stars. "Chike," she whispered, "your heart has never wavered. Your love has endured what few could survive. For this, I grant you a rare gift. You may walk the surface by day, among your people, and return to my realm by night. You may live in both worlds, yet remain bound to me freely. By choice, not obligation." Chike bowed his head in gratitude. "I am humbled beyond measure. My heart will always follow yours, whether above the waves or beneath them." The water round them shimmered, sparkling as if celebrating their union. Ezine rose higher, the glow of her power reflecting across the palace. "I see now that true sight is not in their eyes alone," she said. "Pity can never make love. It is only acceptance, devotion, and understanding that build bridges between worlds. You have learned this, Chike, and you have proven it with your heart. And so, the divide between land and water, between mortal and spirit, between fear and trust, became a bridge rather than a barrier." Chike and Ezine moved through both worlds as one, a living testament to love that defied ancient laws and curses, yet honored them in its wisdom. Above, the kingdom thrived, rains fell gently, yet endlessly, washing the fields with fertility and blessing the people with abundance. Children laughed in green pastures, rivers ran strong, and elders told tales of the prince who had braved water and spirit to save both land and heart. On firesides, under sacred trees, and in whispers at twilight, Chike and Ezine's story became legend, a story of courage, devotion, and the unseen strength of the heart. One night, as Chike rested by Ezine's side, a vision shimmered across the water. A child, glowing faintly with the blessing of both land and water, appeared in a cradle of moonlight. The image pulsed with promise. This child would walk both worlds, bear the wisdom of water and land, and carry forward a tale yet untold. Ezine smiled, leaning against Chike. "Our story does not end," she said softly. "It continues in ways we can only imagine. Love, courage, and sight, all are gifts, and all must be chosen." Chike pressed his forehead to hers. "Then let us walk both worlds, together, until the end of our days." And in that quiet, shining moment, the waters whispered their approval. The kingdom above flourished, and the currents carried a gentle truth: to love without judgment, to see without sight, and to accept without pity is to touch the divine. And perhaps, somewhere, in another river or lagoon, another story waits to be told, one that begins with a ripple, a choice, and the courage to follow a heart where it dares to go.